Qué bueno que continúe en la señal del canal del Congreso. Le damos la bienvenida a una emisión más de su programa Personajes, que hoy tiene el honor de platicar con el Excelentísimo Señor Sujan Chinoy. Él es embajador de la República de la India en México. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros, embajador.
Gracias. Thank you.
Para comenzar con esta entrevista, embajador, platíquenos un poco acerca de, México y la India están celebrando 65 años de relaciones bilaterales. ¿Cuál es el balance que usted nos daría sobre estas relaciones diplomáticas?
Mexico and India are ancient countries with a rich civilizational legacy, and they have an absolutely trouble-free relationship. Both countries have come into their own in the 20th century. India achieved independence in 1947. It declared itself a republic in 1950, and Mexico was the first Latin American country to establish diplomatic relations with the Republic of India on the 1st of August 1950. Over the past 65 years, Mexico and India have enjoyed a very good relationship full of warmth, friendship, and cordiality. We are very similar. Both India and Mexico are large countries with large populations. We have a sense of history. We have a very deep sense of identity and culture. Though located at two different ends of the world, India and Mexico have much in common, and especially in this digital age when the tyranny of distance is no longer an impediment, when passwords are more important than passports, it is important that India and Mexico come together in order to deal with the challenges of the future. In the 1950s, we had Ambassador Octavio Paz, who had his first posting to India right in the beginning of our relations. He later went back to India as ambassador from 1962 to 1968 for a full 6 years. And I think we should give Nobel laureate Octavio Paz credit for having brought India to the consciousness of the Mexican people. Over the years, both Mexico and India have made tremendous progress. We may have taken different paths, but there are some basic similarities. The basic objective of both countries is to ensure that our economic development, and especially the fruits of economic development, are made available to the large numbers of people that we have in our country. All segments of society, including the poor, must benefit from progress. So over the last 65 years, India has made tremendous progress in science and technology, in the field of agriculture. We have a very well advanced space launch program, and there are possibilities for India and Mexico to cooperate in the field of space. We have already signed an MOU in this regard. In recent years, there has been a high-level dialogue between the two countries, which has enriched our relationship and given a fresh impetus to our bilateral ties.
Embajador, platíquenos qué opina sobre, el papel que está desempeñando esta Comisión de Relaciones Exteriores Asia-Pacífico del Senado mexicano y sobre todo la importancia de la diplomacia parlamentaria.
Has taken several initiatives, not only with regard to India, but with regard to many other countries in the Asia-Pacific region. This is very appropriate because, as we have seen in the last 10 to 15 years, the traditional engines of global economic growth have slowed down. And it is the Asia-Pacific region that has come up as an area of hope and expectation, an area that will provide the engines for future global economic recovery and growth. In the Asia-Pacific region, we have seen the veritable miraculous rise of China. And then we have also seen that there are many other countries that are also developing very rapidly. India is among those countries in the Asia-Pacific region. India has now been officially declared by the World Bank, the IMF, and all financial institutions as the fastest growing large emerging economy in the world. In 2015, India is likely to post growth rates that are in the region of 7% or more. And in the near future, given the fundamentals of the Indian economy being so stable, solid and consolidated, we are likely to grow at an even higher growth rate in the future. Just as India is a very dynamic economy in the Asia-Pacific region, Mexico is an economy with tremendous potential for the future, with potential to emerge as the global manufacturing center in the future. And we therefore attach the greatest of importance to developing our relations in every sphere with Mexico. We already have about 45 Indian companies who have invested about close to $1 billion in Mexico, primarily in areas such as information technology, pharmaceuticals, and the automotive industry. Likewise, there are Mexican companies, about 9 or 10, who have decided to go to India to make use of the opportunities that India offers. We must remember one thing, that India is the world's second largest population. It is set to become one of the world's largest economies. And as our Prime Minister has said on a number of occasions, please come to India, please make in India. And when the Prime Minister says make in India, what he really means is that please come to India and make use of the uniqueness that we have to offer. He has referred to the 3 Ds of India, the 3 unique Ds. The D for democracy, the D for demand, because India is a very large market, and also the D for the demographic dividend, because India is one of the few countries in the world with a youthful population. India has 1.2 billion people, a full half of which, 600 million people in India, are below the age of 25. When the entire world is aging, when the entire world is slowly losing out in terms of the ready availability of able-bodied men and women to man the factories, to work in the factories, to provide services, at that point of time, India is in a position to provide rich human resources, well-trained, capable, technologically savvy and advanced, to almost every country in the world. So it's a win-win partnership for anyone who wants to globalize, to make themselves globally competitive. One of the biggest alternatives and options is to engage India, to come to India, to invest in India. Mexico has some very good technologies. It has benefited enormously by being part of NAFTA over the last 20 years. It is a springboard for reaching out to South America, to the Caribbean. And given the large numbers of FTAs, the free trade agreements that Mexico has, it's a win-win situation for India as well to come to Mexico.
Y hablando precisamente de este desarrollo económico tan importante que ha tenido la India, platícanos, embajador, ¿cuáles son algunas de las medidas que su gobierno ha implementado para impulsar el desarrollo económico de su país?
Prime Minister has started a program, for instance, called Make in India, which I just described to you. It is with the idea of India providing the basis for receiving investments into India from other countries, to ensure that the share of industry in the Indian economy goes up and increases in order to provide employment to large numbers of people. And we are well placed because we have the right kind of youthful human resources to fuel this kind of spurt in industrial activity in India. Apart from that, Prime Minister has also given tremendous importance to the services sector to ensure that we advance in biotechnology in terms of our electronics. We make sure that we have the right kind of funding available for our scientific and technological activities in India. that we collaborate with the right kind of partners across the world. Prime Minister has also given importance to the advancement of agriculture. One of the most important initiatives taken by Prime Minister is to ensure that all the people of India are registered, have an identity number, and they also have bank accounts. By ensuring that every person, every unknown person in India, no matter at what level of socio-economic development, he should have a bank account, he or she should have a bank account, because with bank account comes an identity. And when you have a bank account, the government can reach you directly. Earlier in the Indian economy, the government was giving subsidies to the poor. Some of the subsidies used to be lost before they reached their destination. There could have been misuse, there could have been lack of an appropriate structure to ensure transparency. But now that you have bank accounts, the subsidies have been withdrawn. And the idea, whether it is food subsidy or whether it is fuel subsidy, the idea is to give the money directly to the poor through their bank accounts. Prime Minister has also taken the initiative with regard to creating a digital India. And by saying that we should have a digital India, it means that we create numerous platforms in India to enable the common people of India in every sector, in every segment of society, in every part of the country, to be able to link up with government, to be able to benefit from services on e-platforms. So e-governance is possible, simplification of the government in India is possible, provided we move away from red tape and paperwork to e-governance. And therefore, digital India is extremely important for our future. He has also taken an enormous amount of interest in creation of infrastructure in India, dedicated freight corridors in India, to create special economic zones across the country, to seek partnerships with important countries like Japan, with China, with the United States, with Latin America. For I have seen with my own eyes that Mexico has many smart cities. Mexico has many incubators. Mexico has many areas in cities like Guadalajara, Monterrey, Querétaro, which are devoted to development of science and technology, information technology. There are areas that have been reserved for certain high-tech segments of the economy. So we would like many Mexicans to go to India and participate in the Smart Cities program, in Digital India, in the infrastructure programs as well.
Finalmente, embajador, bueno, la India es uno de los actores principales en este siglo XXI. ¿Cuál es el papel que juega dentro del grupo conocido como los BRICS? Además de, bueno, pertenece como país observador a la Alianza del Pacífico, donde México es parte. ¿Cuáles son los intereses de la India de pertenecer a este grupo?
Today, in 2015, the BRICS as an organization have come a long way. Recently, a secretariat has been established in Shanghai following the most recent meeting in Ufa in the Russian Federation. Last year, the BRICS summit was held in Brazil, as you're aware. And the BRICS as a group today have created two new things which will have an impact on the future of their economies and the global economy. The first is the creation of a permanent secretariat and the New Development Bank, as it's called. The New Development Bank, which will have a starting capital of 50 billion US dollars, which will later be increased to 100 billion US dollars, has the participation of all 5 countries. Each of the 5 countries have contributed US dollars 10 billion to acquire shares in the New Development Bank. And the New Development Bank will provide funding primarily for infrastructure projects in these 5 countries. So it's a lending mechanism which will be available to these 5 countries. And this is important because traditionally the Bretton Woods financial system, while it has worked for the larger good of humanity, has not always been available to the same extent to all developing countries. And the new development bank, in a sense, will complement existing structures, make it easier for countries like India, China, Russia, Brazil, South Africa to access funding for infrastructure. This is very important. The second important development in BRICS is the creation of a new mechanism such as the Contingency Reserve Fund. The Contingency Reserve Fund is a parallel mechanism. As the name suggests, it is to be used for contingencies, for meeting the requirements of member countries when there are problems with regard to balance of payments. This will be a mechanism for funding. The eye of India, BRICS is not that strong or consolidated. The eye of India is almost like the backbone of the BRICS. I say this because we have great hope and expectation with regard to India's future in terms of its economic progress. India already has a free trade agreement with Mercosur. We, in fact, believe that outside the Mercosur, especially within the Pacific Alliance, the 4 countries of Mexico, Colombia, Chile, and Peru are very dynamic economies. Together, India finds that 40% of its trade with Latin America is with these 4 dynamic countries. These are the 4 countries that provide stable economic growth, a stable political environment. These are the countries that already have FTAs with one another. These are the 4 countries that have a very large number of FTAs with many other countries in the world.
Embajador, pues muchas gracias por esta charla con el canal del Congreso.
Gracias a usted, and thank you very much for having me on your channel. My very best wishes to all members of the Senate, all the staff, in fact, everyone who's watching this program.
Y pues bueno, muchas gracias a todos los que nos acompañaron en esta serie de personajes. Los invitamos a que continúen en la señal del canal del Congreso. Muchas gracias. Hasta la próxima.